Do you have a, weed collection? Do you collect anything?
Not really. I used to collect, but not as an adult, no.
My husband collects licenses, like photo licenses.
Other people's?
And his. He keeps all the old ones.
What? He collects other people's licenses?
Yeah.
Do they know that he's got them?
Yeah. So, I probably shouldn't say this, but his daughters lose their license all the time. For different reasons, or they upgrade, And so he's got all those. Because I was just looking for a license, and he said, "Oh, you just go into my top drawer. I've got an old one there." And I've gone there, and there's his dad's, mine, from the last 10 years, all his daughters. I've just realised how many licenses he has.
But there's not random members of the public that he's collected their licenses.
No, but I'm sure that he would keep them if anyone gave it.
Welcome to the Tradies Business Show, helping you get off the tools and into true business ownership, so you can spend more time doing the things that matter most. Now, here are your hosts, Warwick Bidwell and Michaela Clark.
Welcome to the Tradies Business Show. At least I know I'm not the only unique individual on the planet.
He's not in fraud or anything like that. We'll have the bloody Australian police force on our door in a minute. But he actually has framed some. We have some pictures of our past, and it's like a big collage he made, and there's the old license in there.
Because everyone likes to pull out the old the driver's license and laugh at each other's photos. So I guess it's related to that.
I don't know what I've married, but anyway.
Well, speaking of collections, there's a bit of a segue into our guest for today's show, and Rob Gerrish founded a community called Flying Solo as a website, an online community, and they've collected 90,000, he said, members. Wow. And these are all basically sole traders, micro businesses, solo entrepreneurs, people like you listening to this show, essentially, of sort of, 2 or 3 employees, just that smaller business. And it's this massive online community that hang out together and swap stories, and it's almost as good as the Tradies Business Toolkit.
Nearly. However, but one really good thing I love about the Flying Solo is the community, but also there's a lot of great articles on the site that you can access. And
some of which written by Michaela and me.
Oh, that is right. There are
if we pulled our finger out and did it more often, yeah.
There are some other contributors, but don't worry about them. But no, there is some great, and it's how to nuts and bolts stuff, which I know a lot of our listeners really enjoy. So it's a great, great community. It was great to have Robert on the show today.
He had some great stories, and it was a really good chat, actually. I really enjoyed today's interview, and I think you will too. Yep,
lots of tactical ninja tips that we know you guys like.
Stuff you can actually execute.
Yes.
So enjoy. So joining us today at the Tradies Business Show is Robert Gerrish. Gerrish or Gerrish, Robert? I have to get that right, mate. I think it's Gerrish.
It's Gerrish.
Gerrish, great. So from Flying Solo, now you're the founder of the Flying Solo community, which some of our tradie listeners might not actually be familiar with. So, Robert, tell us a bit about who's Robert Gerrish and what the heck is Flying Solo, mate?
Okay, great. Well, look, so Flying Solo is an online community to support those people that are going it alone in business. So particularly solo businesses, but also, anyone who's maybe in a very, very small business, maybe 1, 2, 3 or 4 people in the business. And our reason for being is to supply support and resources and a place to kind of meet and commune online, to learn, to share stories, to pick up tips, and to generally keep our businesses on track, keep nice and happy in our work, and move forward with massive prosperity and enjoyment.
And I guess a big thing that a lot of solo businesses don't have often that access to a like-minded community and network. So how do you think a small business benefits from being part of a network such as yours?
Yeah, okay, well, that's a good point. I mean, I think to some degree that we're perhaps skirting around the word of isolation, which is often mentioned when people work by themselves, and it's actually, I don't believe it's quite the sort of issue for most that some people would sort of have us believe. I think generally most people that work on their own do so largely through choice, and most of them, I think, are pretty good at building their own little networks. I mean, most of our community are working from a home base. And the chances are certainly in most of our bigger towns and cities, there might be 2 or 3 other home-based businesses, just outside the front gate, basically. So I don't think it's a massive issue. However, what can certainly benefit a business is not just kind of communing with people, but as you rightly said, Michaela, is getting more in touch with like-minded people. And I think that's, where we do that sort of most prolifically, if that's a word, is within our forums and I guess our Facebook community, where people can dive in and ask questions and, all day and all night do exactly that. And form sort of bonds and relationships, be they offline or online. So I think in this day and age, we've never had a greater opportunity to connect with people, whether it's through us or any other sort of systems. But the first step is you've got to have that kind of desire to do it and take a step in that direction, I think. And
so how many people are we talking about in the Flying Solo community, Rob?
Well, if you look at the sort of counter in the header of our site, it's this, in the last sort of week or so, is just shunted over 90,000. So those are 90,000 Australian businesses.
Wow.
Which is, as I often say to my wife, look, if they all turned up at our house, that's a lot of people.
That's a big party to cater for, mate.
That's a big party. But look, I think I should also be, realistic here that whilst a lot of people sort of register with us, because membership is free, and once people join with us, they can, consume content and get involved in discussions. But it would not be, truthful for me to suggest that 90,000 people are in there talking all day, every day. They're not, and in this day and age with so many means of kind of sort of learning and broadcasting and getting involved available online, we're all fighting for engagement. But I would say that within our community, we try to keep measures of how engaged our audience are. And I reckon, probably 30 to 40,000 of our members are fairly sort of active with us. And then others, come and go. Often it's people who've got a particular need. They get an answer to that need and, they're off back at work again. So, levels of engagement obviously vary.
So, Robert, I want to talk a bit more about the size of that community and perhaps some of the things that you've learned from that. But before we jump into that, how did Flying Solo come about?
Well, look, I'll give you the short version of this because I tell you, you've opened a can of worms, and sometimes
I love doing that.
I can drone on for hours. But look, basically, I originally started it. I actually registered the name Flying Solo in 1999, I think it was. So quite early in internet days, and I have a background in the sort of marketing industry, design and marketing on the other side of the world in the UK. So I'd worked for many years as within a small marketing agency in London, and we'd helped smaller and generally larger brands, get engagement with their audiences. That wasn't language that we used in those days, but that was my sort of background. And when I had the good sense to rebuild and move my life to Australia, I was initially working with sort of small creative companies. As I say, I've sort of come out of that background. And when I kind of landed here, I had some friends who I'd got to know over the years, and they said, "Oh, look, would you come and help us with our marketing and our positioning?" So I kind of did that. And before long, I sort of realized that actually there was a whole group of people that were the individuals, the independents, the solo entrepreneurs, the soloists, and they weren't really getting particular support anywhere. So I started sort of focusing more on that area, and was invited to write a regular column for the newspaper, if you remember newspapers. And I was then doing a little piece on local radio, and then I was invited by a publisher to write a book. And it was all, and so I realized I was kind of onto something here. So I quickly registered Flying Solo. I had the good sense to team up with my first business partner, Samantha Leader, and we sort of wrote our first book together. And it just kind of, and then these things called portals came along. So we started writing content and publishing it online. And then other people approached us and said, "Oh, can I put my content on your website?" And I went, "Yeah, okay." And then eventually when Peter Crocker, our third partner, joined us, he sort of pushed us to get a forum going because it was obvious people were trying to talk. So it was all, if it sounds somewhat accidental, it sort of kind of probably was. But it was seated in a deep strategy.
We'll run with that story, Robert.
Yeah, okay.
And of course, engagement's up when Warwick and I are contributors as well to Flying Solo. So I'm sure you see your numbers peak.
It's gone through the roof.
Yeah.
Look, it's very interesting. I love what you guys do. I truly love it, and it's quite interesting because what you've succeeded in doing, which we didn't succeed in doing, was really engaging with tradespeople. And we've not done that in the way that you have, and I think you've done it because you really, you've drilled down so much further into a real niche, and you do it so perfectly. And I think the way that you're doing the podcast, again, so brilliant. People consume it whilst they're going about their work. What we know is we often have the tradies partners, wives, friends, supporters, family, as our audience, but the tradies themselves, my goodness, they're a difficult group to get the attention of. And so, hey, all credit to you. You've done it. You're doing it.
We hear you.
Yeah. And g'day to all of our listeners as well. Yeah. We love how difficult you are to deal with because we understand you.
Yeah, busy guys. I mean, really, they haven't got time to faff about, reading all the delightful things that we craft and write. They're there working. The phone's ringing.
But I know there's certainly, it's something that I did speak to you on your team about a couple of years ago, is perhaps looking at having more tradies actually contribute to the site, and give their input. So if there is any tradies out there that would love to, contribute what they've learned in business, and I'm sure there's a lot of, like you've said, your audience that would relate to that information.
So bring it on, please. If anybody's listening, yes. We'd absolutely love that. And there must be a number of people that are sort of off the tools now, probably thanks to the work that you guys do, that would like to give back a bit. Well, hey, give it to us. Thank you. Yes, come along. We'd love to have some contributions from tradies, without a doubt.
Great. Well, if you're sitting here listening to this podcast, gang, and I know we've got a few members of our membership site and a few listeners who have done quite well in getting off the tools, please get in touch with Mikado or myself. But Robert, you talk about the size of this community, and we chuck terms around like engagement, and 20 or 30,000 business owners basically is a lot of people to have, I guess, communicating in a space where you can see what's going on and you can see what people are talking about.
Yeah.
How do you, I suppose, sift through all of that chatter, and what's some of the things or the themes that you've seen over the years with that community and what they've been talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, look, I should probably just share with you a story that one of our community kind of wrote in our forums. Was an analogy. He basically described Flying Solo as being like a pub or a cafe. So let's stick with pub for the moment. And he said that basically Flying Solo is a pub, and we, that is me and my wonderful crew of people that work with us, we're the custodians of the pub. So our job is to keep the place tidy, keep the music at the right levels, keep the tables clean, throw out anyone that's really rowdy. Just make sure that people have the right environment in which to feel comfortable, feel safe, and feel that they can, just talk. That's our job. And it was wonderful to read that. And I have personally a sort of a constant kind of line going through my mind, which is the community has the answer. Now, when we started, we were very much thinking that we had to do everything. But in fact, as we've grown, we realized that we are custodians. We are managing the community, but the community are the goals. The community are the people that make Flying Solo what it is, and our job is to say, to keep the place clean and tidy, make sure the lighting's nice, make sure do all that sort of stuff. So, the community has the answer is this message I carry in my mind. And sometimes we'll see things that fire up in our forums or on Facebook, and we'll go into a sort of quick huddle going, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? How do we respond? By the time we get our act together, 3 or 4 people have responded and it's shifted.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the wonderful thing about an active community is that as long as you administer a community well and moderate a community well, then it runs itself largely. But to answer your question about how do we sort of keep an eye on things, well, we do it through moderation and through watching. So, you know, all the time I won't say it's 24/7, but we have every day at regular intervals, a team of us, there's 8 or 9 of us now work within Flying Solo all around the country, all on different times. We all monitor what's going on. So if there's something that isn't right or that's going off track a bit, we will dive straight in and correct it. If there's someone who's obviously flailing around a little, doesn't know what to do, we'll jump in and help them. So it's watching, and that's what we all do. And it's so rewarding to see how independent business owners support each other. It is just astonishing. And, you know, if ever anyone's got sort of, a worry about their faith in humankind, just sit in and have a look at some of the discussions, because some of the stuff that goes on is really lovely. And occasionally you'll get the odd sort of, less than wonderful person who pops in. But, same with the pub, it happens.
And they get evicted quite quickly.
They get evicted quite quickly, yeah. Well, yeah, and the good thing is when you've got the right environment, if somebody barges through the door and says, look at me, look at me, look at me, buy my course, sign up for my email newsletter, look at me, aren't I great? That person's going to look pretty stupid. And they do, but they still do it, but,
Yeah, everyone has a crack eventually, I suppose.
Yes.
And I have to say, have to return the accolades, Robert, the community that yourself and your team have built and maintained and fostered, and the culture you've created within that Flying Solo community, you guys have done an incredible job. I mean, numbers aside, just the actual, like you say, that sort of camaraderie amongst business owners with a common goal and a common interest is mind-blowing stuff, mate. So
thank you. That's lovely.
You should be commended on that.
Thank you.
So you must see some interesting stories, come out of that community and out of your members, both, heartwarming and perhaps gut-wrenching. What do any come to mind that really stand out for you as perhaps examples of both, and maybe the value in the Flying Solo community?
Well, look, this will sound a bit sort of churlish, but every week we see great things going on, and we read of not so great things going on. And the lovely thing of the way that we operate as a team, those of us that work within Flying Solos, we chat during the day together. We use Slack as our little communication tool, and it suits us really well. So only this morning, we had Paul, our moderator, who's based up in your neck of the woods, posted some really lovely conversations just to let us know, some things that had happened overnight with a young lady who was getting involved in a retail business and was just speaking very openly about her concerns about things. And a couple of very nice sort of wise old owls popped in and gave her some advice. And it sort of ended up, just a fairly brief discussion, but ended up with her just saying that she felt, reinvigorated and clearer. And those sort of things, little stories like that are happening all the time. We had, I remember last year as well, a really sort of heartrending story with one of our members who was going through a really tough time with her mental health. And, as we all know, this is an issue that is coming to the fore in that it's being spoken about much more openly within our communities, be they business or otherwise. And yeehaw that we're talking openly about the importance of mental health in the way that we are. But we had, to actually pop onto a forum and tell somebody, or tell, a lot of somebody that you're having a really tough time and you're really questioning, your future on this planet, is a really brave thing to do. And a young woman did that last year and just again received the most wonderful response. And when you first look at a post like that, you think, oh, how's this, you just kind of, well, you just feel the weight of this person. You think,
Yeah.
Do we know enough to be able to kind of run with this conversation? But, again, the truth is the community has the answer, and the community had the answer. And it was delightful to see so many people jumping in and sharing their experiences and reassuring this young woman. And the end result of it was that she felt heard and supported and was able to move forwards in a good way. So, there's plenty of stories like that, and it's very good.
So I'm a big believer in now is such a great time for small business owners. I mean, with things like the internet and technology and all that, it's never really been easier to have a small business, have a virtual team, take your business offshore, all that kind of stuff. So how do you feel that, the industry is going for small business, and what do you think are some of the trends that's going to happen over the next few years?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I agree with you, but it's interesting. When I first registered the Flying Solo domain name at the end of the last century, and pretty well every other day throughout the last however many 16 years or so, I think I've heard myself say there's never been a better time.
You're not the only one.
No, so I think it's one of those things that the three of us, and hopefully a lot of your listeners as well, when you're running your own show and you're in control of your destiny and you can enjoy a freedom that is just unknown by so many people in employment, every day's another great day. So that might sound a bit cheesy, but that is my thought of it. So are there lots of trends? Yes, of course there are. I mean, I think that as there are so many more opportunities, so there are, everyone, or there's so many more other people that are able to seize those opportunities. So, to be heard, to be seen, to be noticed, is just gets more challenging. There's more pressure on us to do a decent job of it. And that's not a bad thing, because it'll turn us into, kind of better people, I would say. In terms of, trends, I mean, certainly this, what we've noticed, quite a lot in the last couple of years, and it's going on more and more, is the importance of really stepping into this kind of expert space and having the courage to say, I know what I'm talking about, and I understand your concerns about my area of knowledge. I'm sure I could have said that in a snappier way, but, I do think that for any of us, and I absolutely include tradies in this, if I go through, a few years ago, if I went through the yellow pages, I would find a lot of plumbers. If I go online, I will find a lot of plumbers. So the challenge is, well, okay, how do I stand out? How do I get noticed? How do I increase my likelihood of being engaged as the plumber? And that calls on us to it's less about getting to the top of Google, although that clearly helps. It's more, I think it comes back more and more to who are you, authentically, who are you? How are you pitching and presenting yourself? How are you showing up? How are you handling things when you do show up? It's all that sort of stuff. So I see, in terms of trends, I guess, again, that would impact your industry, massive sort of tech trends that are just so wonderful. The fact that you can turn up on site and kind of pull together a quote from that little device in your pocket and do it on the spot, that you can invoice and get paid on the spot. I mean, my goodness, how different is that to how it was a few years ago? The fact that you can take a picture of a piece of guttering and send it to somebody and have it ordered and waiting for you, as opposed to spending 40 minutes standing in a queue, with all the other tradies. I just think there are so many things that are just going to make that sort of stuff quicker, more seamless, better. But it also puts demands on us to embrace those technologies and, don't be frightened of it, because these things do make our life and our businesses easier, smoother, and more effective.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And things like live streaming and all that kind of stuff, I think is really exciting for our space in particular, because yes, our guys are on the job site all day. They're not writing marketing material. They're, not having access like a lot of, say, office workers.
Yeah.
But they can produce such powerful content. You know, when they're on a job site and they see a mistake made by another tradesman, or they do before and afters, or they talk through, you know, a problem tree that they've found, and or whatever it is, whatever issues, they can constantly be showing authority through what they're currently doing. They just need to get their phone out and record what they would normally be doing on the side, or telling their customers. So that's just one example of, I think there's some massive opportunities there.
Yeah, you're so right. It's funny because I have a 16-year-old son, and he's into skateboarding. Bless him. And
good luck with that.
Yeah, good luck with that. Well, he's the most limbs he's broken, so it's anyway. He's getting the hang of it, but he's pretty damn good. But he has this habit of skating over our front steps. And I keep saying, please don't do that. And sure enough, you know, day before he goes back to school, a big chunk of step comes out because he's clunked it with his skateboard. You know, so, you know, I've got to work out how to fix that. So what did I do? I went straight to Google. How do you fix chunks out of paving stones? And watched a fantastic video of a guy. It was actually in the US. And, but it was just a fairly, you know, down to earth guy who must have just propped his phone up on his wheelbarrow or something, and just talked about how he fixes up steps. And it was, for me, because that's what I wanted, it was captivating. It was like 2 minutes long. It was, you know, the audio wasn't brilliant, the footage wasn't brilliant, but boy, did it answer my questions perfectly. And basically what it said was, get a professional to come and fix it. You know, but that's the point, is that what I think where a lot of people hesitate is they think, if I show someone how to do this, they won't get me to come and do it. Well, yes, they will, because what it shows someone like me, Joe Bloggs, who's, you know, got two right hands, is that I admire the skill of this person to do it, and I don't want to do it myself. You know, but by seeing it, and by this person showing me exactly what he did and how he does it, has shown to me I need help. You know, and I think that's where the opportunity lies, Michaela, just as you said. Shoot this footage and don't worry that people are going to run off and do it themselves. Some people might. Well, they were never going to come to you. No. But the ones that see it and think, I like the sound of this guy. I can imagine this guy being in my front garden for an hour and a half. I can imagine leaving this guy alone for my wife whilst I go off and do something and not be concerned. I can imagine leaving this guy in my house with my young child and not worry about it. You know, these are things that you get from video that you don't get in any other way.
And what I also, and couldn't have said it better, I love how you see that as well. But, you know, this stuff's free. It's just their time. They're not having to fork out 30, 40 grand for a full Yellow Pages ad that happens once a year. You know, this is stuff they can be doing every day. It takes 5 minutes, you know, and if they're fixing a job or doing it anyway, just talk to your phone as if you're talking to a mate next to you. And like you've said, that's such powerful content.
Totally. And you know, the thing is, so much of this stuff, if somebody really wants the information, they can be really forgiving. And what that means is you don't have to have professional lighting. You don't have to have professional audio. You don't have to spend hours setting it up. You know, it's just stick it up there, get it going, and I think most people will be surprised. And a 2-minute video that's got great content in it is better than 20 minutes beautifully produced that's just full of hot air. You know, it's so different to what it was a few years ago.
And consumers tend to mistrust perhaps slick productions. You know, they'll place more credence on something that is a little more authentic and raw. Rather than, you know, the $1 million production where it's like, well, clearly they've done that in a studio and they're trying to sell me something. Yeah. Versus old mate who's on a site saying, hey guys, this is how you fix your step.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, part of me thinks the world's gone mad with a lot of YouTube stuff, because, you know, I was looking around for a particular pair of shoes that I'd seen in a shop and they didn't have them my size, so I Googled it. And what do I end up watching? A video of some guy in California unboxing a pair of those shoes. Why? Why is he doing it? But more importantly, why the hell am I watching it?
We've all been there.
Why am I watching a 23-year-old guy unbox a pair of shoes that I want to buy?
Yes.
You know, but hey, you know, well, it's gone crazy really, but it's opportunities are boundless. Absolutely. In that area.
And so much of this, and we've spoken about this quite a bit on the show, and no doubt the Flying Solo contributors have written about it numerous times, is about our personal choice and our personal responsibility. You know, we really need to take ownership of, I suppose, of our outcomes and our actions. And rather than sort of lamenting how confusing technology can be and how tough things can be and how many competitors there might be, is actually, you know, get off our backsides and take some action, take some positive action around doing something differently.
Yeah, and look, and I you know, we run a big survey every couple of years at Flying Solo, and it's interesting that so much, you know, you could read one from 2008 or read one from last year, and if I swapped a few things around, you'd never know the difference. And basically what that means is that the things that are keeping people awake at night, the things that work, the things that don't work, pretty well don't change. No matter what's going on with technology, so much of the core, the basis of business doesn't change. And right at the top, still, every single time we run it, far and away ahead of anything else in terms of the thing that works best to grow your business is word of mouth. And it's never moved. It hasn't hovered or changed. It's word of mouth is the thing. People talking about what you do to someone else. And it doesn't matter how smickly you've painted your van, how beautiful you've monogrammed your shirt, you know, how perfectly you've printed and designed all your quoting and everything else. It's what does that person say about you to their next door neighbor? That's what grows business. And that's the kind of thing that still so many people do so little to grow. They think that it's enough just to let word of mouth happen on its own. Well, we can give it a bit of a nudge. And that's what I would say to most small business, particularly tradies, is just make sure you're doing everything you can be doing to foster word of mouth.
So, Robert, I'm going to jump in and ask the question that I know our listeners are sitting in their utes and perhaps on the loo listening to this thinking, yeah, but how?
Okay.
Everyone says, you know, I've got to get more word of mouth, but how? I mean, are there some simple things?
All right. Well, look, there are some simple things. I touched on a couple of them a moment ago. And let's totally think of tradesmen. I think of one of my favorite tradesmen is a guy who comes around and paints the interior of a house. And of course, how often am I going to see him? Once every 5, 10 years? 10 years, more likely, you know me. And his name's Steve. But when I need the interior repainting again, I will contact Steve. Now, why will I contact Steve? Is he cheaper than anybody else? No. Is he better than anybody else? No. But what he is he's absolutely personable. My family all love him. You know, from the minute when he first stepped foot in our house, our son was 3, I think. And the first thing Steve did is he bent down on his haunches and he said, "Hello, Jay. What do you like doing?" He talked to my son, and my wife and I sat there thinking, wow, this is weird. You know, well, it wasn't, actually, we didn't think this was weird. We thought, this is lovely. Now, that's a man that knows that in a house, the little people are, certainly to the wife, are the most important things in that house. You know, if our house was on fire, my wife would get our son a little bit before she worried about me. Right? And you know, I can live with that. She'd probably get her phone, then our son, and then she'd worry about it.
I hope she doesn't listen to the show, mate.
No, and I'm joking. But, you know, that's one of the things. Steve, from the minute he walked in our house, I remember, you know, this is from 13 years ago. He stood on the front door, he said, "Is it okay if I keep my shoes on?" Because he knows that some people like to take the shoes. And I said, "Yes, of course it is, Steve. Come in." Then he crouched down and said, "Hello, what's your name?" Now, and he did this. It was all genuine. This wasn't number 1, ask about the shoes. Number 2, bend down, talk to kid. It wasn't done like that. He was delightful. He knew that, when it comes to the interior of a house, the chances are this is going to sound ever so slightly sexist, but it shouldn't. The chances are the wife has probably got a little bit more consideration and thought about it than the husband has. So he immediately went into, where would you like me to stack your pictures when I do the wall, Mrs. Gerrish? Where should I move the furniture to? He was just showing that he understood the concerns. My concern was how much is it going to cost and how quickly you're going to get it done. But he knew that the decision about a house, about a big thing like that, is made by a family, not by an individual. So we had a couple of people come around and quote, and we gave it to Steve, and we gave it to him because of those things, not because he was cheaper. And have we talked about him to other people? Yes, we have. It got to the point where he rang me once and said, "Will you please stop referring me? I can't take any more work on." Just because I want people to share what this lovely guy is. Now, take that, compare that to, can't remember the guy's name, an electrician that we had a few years ago who was, you know, when you meet people in business and you just know it's time they got out of their business. My goodness, he was one of these people. Everything was difficult. Everything was a pain. Oh, God, you really want it put all the way up there? How am I going to reach? Hey, it's a ceiling. You're an electrician. This shouldn't be the first time you've seen a ceiling. You know, cope with it. But everything was, it was just like a sort of atmosphere of vacuum the minute he arrived in. Every sense of enjoyment and fun was
sucked
out of that. Yeah. So, you know, those are the things that create word of mouth, is being personable, clearing up when you go. How many people hate it when the tradesman's gone and there's, you know, they've done this token, or they've got their junior just to go around with a brush, mate, just tidy up a bit. And what do? They shuffle all the stuff sort of under the carpet or into the plants, you know, just enough that you still got to go and bend down and do it all yourself. It's that sort of detail is so important. And the last thing I would say on this is follow up. Is just following up. I remember, and it's hardly a tradesman, but when we bought our house through a very well-known real estate agent, we bought it at a time when the market was going crazy, you know. So I always managed to buy property at the top of the market and sell it at the bottom. You know, hey, don't ask me how.
You're just helping all the other investors, Robert. That's
right. So this guy sold his house to us. There was no selling to do. We were waiting outside the house when he arrived. You know, we bought it before the marketing had started. It was one of those, you know, pre-marketing open things, and we just refused to move. We stayed on site until we'd managed to buy it. So this guy really did not terribly much work. And we never, ever had any kind of follow-up from him whatsoever until 2 years later, when the market had got tough. Do you know what? We got a Christmas card from him. Wow. You know, 2 Christmases later, and suddenly it's like, and I used to carry that round to small business presentations to kind of, I blotted the guy's name out, but just saying, look at this, making a mockery of it. That's not what you do. You know, that's not the way to do it. The thing is, when you've done, if you're doing, say, garden landscaping, what's the first thing people are going to do when they've got a new landscape garden? Is they're going to invite their friends over and show it off. So, you know, maybe think about dropping around a voucher to the local butchers to get some snags for the barbie or something. Or make a call round a couple of weeks later and going, just driving past and make sure everything's going okay, you're happy. You know, follow-up is such a great thing to do. But too often we just kind of do the job, move on to the next and forget about it. And that's not the way to do it.
It's funny, we talk about how technology is advancing and all these wonderful opportunities with live streaming and you know, as business owners we need to absolutely be embracing those technologies and those advancements. But time and again, you know, guests we have on the show, and you've certainly echoed most of that, Robert, is the fundamentals are still perhaps the best bang for buck things that you can be doing in your small business.
Yeah, I totally think so. And I'll just, as you can tell, I tend to bang on a bit, but you know, we've got, I'll go back to a plumber. We've got a plumbing company that are prolific with their door-to-door drops. And I don't know how many fridge magnets I've had from these guys over the years, but I'm looking at one now because it's just about to go in the bin. And these guys, their marketing is slick, very slick. Emails, door-to-door drops, everything's slick. However, 2 years ago, I needed a new water heater. I got 3 quotes, and theirs was double what other people's were. And it was all when this whole solar heating thing, and there was a bit of a scam going on, I think, as to, you know, how they, anyway, I won't go into all that. But suffice to say, they blew it totally. And what I see now, and it wasn't just that it was a little bit more expensive, it was double. And so what I see now is I just see all this ritzy marketing stuff coming from them. And I think, really, haven't you worked out that I haven't worked with you at all for 2 years? You know, you're still sending me all this stuff. That's just I hope they frankly, that they end up just going broke because they're doing too much of it. Whereas what somebody could be doing is just saying, hey, I've noticed you haven't worked with us at all for a couple of years. Did we do anything wrong? And I'd love to say, well, actually, yes, you did. You know, but people don't do that. Instead, what they're doing is they're sending me bigger fridge magnets and more of them. You know, I just think, you know, that's not the way to go.
Yeah, I worked with an electrician who's part of a franchise, a national franchise, and similar thing. You know, he had a lot of people that he had done work for over a couple of year period and hadn't spoken to them, hadn't heard from them, and we just gathered up as many email addresses as we could to keep the cost down, and just dropped a personal email out that said, hey, you know, we did some work for you a while back. We haven't heard from you. You haven't heard from us. Just wanted to make sure everything was okay and let you know that, you know, we've got a couple new guys on the team. We now do this, that, and the other. And he got an insane amount of work from that instantly just because he said, hey, in a personal way. It wasn't a big flashy campaign with a video and a super special offer and buy now. But it really was just tapping into that thing that people buy from people they like.
Yeah. Well, just imagine if, you know, and would it be true to say, and this is a question to you two, would it be true to say that a reasonable proportion of tradies do have their spouse, their wife, their partner doing a lot of the admin sort of for them? Is that quite common?
It's a pretty typical model, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So just imagine if the day after my plumber had left, if his wife rang me up and said, look, just following up with Steve, who was over with you yesterday, did he leave the place in a good state? Because I'm just keeping an eye on him. Now, you know, you could imagine somebody doing something like that, something similar to that, in quite a fun way, and learning a lot. You know, we're happy with his work. I'm just, you know, between you and me, we're okay with it. I'll tell him. I want to sort him out when he gets home. You know, just that sort of stuff. It's a kind of activity that would really give people an insight into how is this being received. Or, you know, I can imagine, and if that conversation is going well, they're saying, well, look, yeah, you know, we've got a couple of young kids now. Just bear in mind, if you've got anybody else that's looking for work, gee, it'd be great if you'd pass this on. Thanks so much. You know, how hard is that to do that kind of stuff? It's not hard, but how many people do it? Not many.
Well, I always mention that to people, you know, follow up, see how their job went. Oh, yeah, but what if they want something was wrong with it, or what if they want me to go back? Well, you should want to know that. You know, and if your work's not good enough, then you shouldn't be in business. You know, if you're worried about the complaints you're going to get, rather than people actually saying, yeah, you did a good job, you know, ask for referrals.
Look, that's so true. And, you know, one of the things I know we were chatting about before we started recording about, you know, what can small business learn from big business? You know, this is one of those things, like a lot of us now buy stuff online. Yeah. We buy things, products, you know, my shoe, you know, I mentioned those shoes a few minutes ago. Well, funnily enough, as we've been speaking, I've seen they've arrived. There's a courier and they've delivered them. Now, I guarantee you, when I go and open that box, there will be a big envelope in there that will make it incredibly easy for me to send them straight back again. Yeah. Incredibly easy. Now, 5 years ago, you try and send something back, and the people who sent it to you would make it unbelievably hard. Can you please send a copy of your receipt across? You know, they'd make it so hard. You have to jump over so many hoops. You think, oh, forget it. I'll take it down to Vinny's and not worry. Whereas now they make it really, really easy. Now, are they all being swamped with returns? No, they're not. And there's a parallel here, I think, with you know, what we were just talking about is, and you're quite right, Michaela, if you're scared of what people's going to say, then that's pointing to something wrong with your service and your system that you need to shift. Because it's, you know, again, another thing it's an old sort of adage in small business, but my goodness, it's right. The people who complain are the people who care. Yeah. You know, the only people who will speak up and go, well, actually, did leave the room in a bit of a mess. If someone's actually got the courage to say that to you, then it's because they care. And your response to that would be, oh, I'm really sorry. Do you want me to pop back and fix that up for you? And 9 times out of 10, the person say, oh, no, it's okay. I've done it now. But, you know, the fact that you've heard them and you've listened to it, and then maybe next time you go in, Dave says, oh, yeah, and by the way, I'm not going to make a mess this time. I'm sorry about last time. You know, there's an opportunity in everything. But if we stick our head in the sand, then, you know, we'll miss it.
Yeah, it's so true. And I love this story that you're just talking about online shopping, and I forget the company, Iconic or maybe one of those, and they'd bought a coat. and they rang up and said, look, the coat doesn't suit or whatever. They wanted to return it. And the company said, that's okay, go donate the coat. We don't want it back. And, you know, and this one was so impressed that this company said, no, we don't want it. You go donate it to somebody that needs it. You know, that story went viral and it was, you know, great publicity for that company, even though I can't remember the name. But it's just that, not that mentality of thinking small, you know, going, oh, just they're complaining again and, you know, I don't have time for this and, oh, no, I left it the right way. It's just accepting that your customers are telling you something and taking advantage of that. And I know we did an episode a couple of weeks ago called Hug Your Haters and, you know, about why you should want to get bad reviews.
Yeah.
You know, and why you
That's
should.
Great.
Yeah, and why you should want to get them so you can improve your service and then thus grow your business.
Yeah, and it's funny, you know, I've sort of, you know, so there's a group of us now, 8 of us within Flying Solo that all do various things, and we come together and we work how we want to work, and it's quite delightful. But one role that I've never seemed to have shaken off is if there's anything that goes, if any individual gets completely offsided by something. It doesn't matter what it is. It might be a comment they read somewhere. It might be disagreeing with an article. It might be a book that never arrived. I'm the bloke who picks up the phone and rings them. And that's always what I'll do. So if you're listening, if anybody's got anything they're unhappy with, test out the system. You'll be hearing from me. I always ring them. And I actually love to do it, not only because it makes me look so heroic in front of all my colleagues, because none of them want to do it, but absolutely 9.9 times out of 10, someone who is absolutely spitting and spewing, when you speak to them and you listen to them and you acknowledge, it will turn into some of the best love you'll ever get. And every single time without fail that happens. You know, we ran a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and through, well, I'm sure she won't be listening to this. I think it might be user error. The lady on the other side of the country thought it started at 4 a.m. and it started at 8 a.m. her time. But she was there at 4 a.m. and she wasn't happy that we weren't. And, you know, and you can understand that. And she was mad. She was, you know, as I would be at 4 o'clock in the morning, and firing off emails and all sorts of things. So I rang her a little later in the day and profusely apologized. I did not make her wrong, even though I'm sorry, but she was wrong. But I apologized profusely, and I said to her, look, you have my, I'd like to tell you that you can knock off work early this afternoon. Right, just close your shop and go home early. And I obviously said it as a joke, but it was lovely. And she was so, you know, she wanted to be heard. And so often when people complain, they're the people that care and they want to be heard. So, you know, we've got to listen. I think loving your haters, or whatever the phrase was you just said, Michaela, is a great topic.
Yeah, give them a big hug. Hug your haters.
Yes, hug your haters. Hug your haters. Yeah.
So, Robert, you've said a few times that you can bang on a bit, and I know Michaela and I can do the same. No, don't be sorry, mate. We love we love a guest who can bang on, but
less work for us, you see.
Our listeners don't have to listen to us for an episode. Right. But mate, there is one question that we'd like to ask all of our guests, and that is, if you had 1,000 tradies in a room, a captive audience, what's perhaps one piece of advice that you would just be desperate to leave them with?
Wow, gosh, that's interesting, isn't it? Well, I would have to say it would go back to the word of mouth. Is I would be saying to all of them, just think about who really values your service, who the people that do speak about you to other people. And when did you last have communication with those people? You know, it's far, far easier to grow our base using the sort of advocates or champions that we already have around us than to continually be finding new people. So it's a little bit like, you know, kind of, what was that song, Love the One You're With? It's just take a moment to sit down and think, who are the people that in the course of my business I know have spoken about me positively to others, and look at your relationship with those people. When did you last speak with them? When did you last make a fuss of them? When did you last sit down with them and ask them questions about what's going on for them in their life and their business, and share what's going on for you? It's so often, I think the real future opportunity for our business is already exists within the relationships we have around us. Whereas too many businesses, I think, are focusing on the new all the time. How can I get new people? How can I get more people? I would say, I'm a bit old school in this sense. I'd say pull back a bit, look at the people around you. How can you reinvigorate and recharge some of the people that are already doing your selling for you?
Such great advice. So, Robert, I'm pretty sure that after listening to today's episode, there'll be a bunch of tradies out there who would love to become part of the Flying Solo community, and they should definitely go and check it out. What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, quite simply, just head along to flyingsolo.com.au. You'll see join buttons and join call to actions all over the place. And it's free to join us. It takes a couple of seconds to do it. So please do just come along and join us. We won't spam you. We won't take advantage of you. We won't bombard you. And, we'd love to have more people join us. And if you're this kind of person that likes to share experiences, our forums are ready and waiting for you. So come along. You can even sign in using a sort of your own little nickname, so that you can share things without people knowing exactly what the name of your business is. And that can be a good way to, just get things off your chest, and also lend a bit of support to others who, could benefit from some of your own wisdom.
And I've also found that a lot of members look for other members as well if they need work. Like we said, there's not a lot of tradies on the platform. So certainly, you can build your own profile and talk about what you do and participate. And just another way of, getting good online word of mouth out there as well.
Yeah, of course. And that's so true. And, the important thing as well, particularly with forums, is the statistics kind of run that if there's 10 people involved in discussion, there are 90 people lurking, watching and reading. So there's only 1 in 10 people actually gets involved in discussion. The rest are all reading it and watching it. So it's a wonderful way to get to know people and for people to get to know you. So if you're, no matter what your trade is, if you're talking about how you manage your day, how you manage work and family, how you cope with pressure, all of these sort of things. What you're doing is you're showing people who you are. And as I say, when people come to making a decision, who do I want in my home? The chances are they're going to want someone in their home that they actually like and they're interested in, that they can connect with. So it's not just about coming along and banging on about what you do, but it's coming on and talking about who you are.
Awesome. Well, Robert, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time, mate. And
pleasure.
Again, congratulations on building Australia's #1 community for small business owners, mate, for soloists. It's fantastic.
Thank you. That's so kind. I'm going to get out and go and have a look at that paving stone again.
Well, thanks again, mate.
Thank you. Bye.
So, great interview with Robert. I think there's a lot of takeaways for our listeners in that. If you want to be a lurker,
yeah.
Or maybe the 10% of our members that actually contribute. But you should join our Tradies Members Toolkit.
So just go to tradiesbusinessshow.com/toolkit, or you could just go to the main site. You'll find it anywhere. You could go to tradiesbusinesstoolkit.com. We've pretty much got you covered. But you can actually join a community specifically for tradies and tradie wives. So it's for both genders. But we do have some active members in there, and it was kind of interesting hearing that about 90% of people are just lurkers.
We would like to say that's not the case in ours, that it's a lot lower than that. But, we do have some great active members. And so join Flying Solo and ours, so you get the best of both worlds.
Absolutely. So thanks for tuning in to the Tradies Business Show. Great to have you with us, and we appreciate your reviews and feedback as well. Make sure you check out our Facebook pages, and we look forward to bringing you another episode next week.
Bye.
Hooroo.
You've been listening to the Tradies Business Show with Warwick Bidwell and Michaela Clark. Want to get off the tools and into true business ownership? Find out how at tradiesbusinessshow.com.